I'm going to wet the entire bottom half of the paper. Now, right over the boat, because the masking fluid is now dry, and it'll preserve the little white bits that we want to save in the final details. Just a touch of cadmium orange to match the glow in the sky here, and then add some cobalt blue to that to pick up some of the gray reflections. I can stay away from the boat so that I don't get too much dark flowing into it. Now I'll add a bit of cobalt blue to raw sienna. And as I get into the darker green reflections, I'm going to switch to a bit of phthalo blue here. Goes dark so much faster, but it will lighten as it dries. Phthalo blue is a stain, so it goes quite a bit lighter. Touch of raw sienna into it, just to pick up a bit of the green reflection, and then a bit darker at the bottom. I can mix a bit of burnt sienna in that phthalo blue too to get it to gray down and be only slightly greenish. Now I had to get a head start on this sailboat, just letting burnt sienna and ultramarine blue just kind of run together, using a very full brush so that it gives that, it mixes itself on the paper and gives that random kind of look. Switch the color mix just a little bit each time. But it's a fully loaded brush, and I don't really want it to empty out. I want it to keep almost like I'm spooning the wash on, so it really floods. That's a little too brown. I'm going to lift that later on, just so it's not quite so brown. Just a little touch here to keep that lighter than the other side of the boat, but it's got to be in shadow. Now I'll just switch to a small brush, about a number 3 or 4. Touch of red on it, just so I get a bit of fine detail contrasting with these big bold washes. There's a lot of plain areas in this painting, so I can afford to pick a few key spots where I get a little bit fussier. Most of my darks are just going to be made with burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, except where I want a bit more color. Just a synthetic watercolor brush, but it has a nice point. I don't want to get too fussy here. Now the paper's totally dry, and it has to be, or it will tear when I start to do this. I want to use the sticky side of a piece of masking tape and lift off the masking fluid. If it's the least bit damp, it'll tear. And it's not a good idea to dry it with a hair blower, because when it gets hot, this masking fluid will almost melt right into the paper and be very hard to get off. So I've just put a little light wash on the right hand side of these masts and sails. This is a rigger brush, aptly named for painting boat rigging, or a liner brush. And back to my number 3 or 4. Lost the number of paints chipped off the handle, but just a small brush, just to suggest this stuff, little marks. You can just keep it very abstract. The story is told really with the boat in the foreground and the reflections.